Today on the Gold Standard.
These countries, Dave, are starting to shut out the dollar as both the center of international trade and the preferred currency on the world scene. And that's a direct threat to every single person who's listening to us today.
This is the Gold Standard from Midas Gold Group with Kenneth Russo. Hello, I'm Dave Dino. Welcome to the Gold Standard, your source for secure investment opinion and information on the advantages of purchasing and owning precious metals. Whether you're a novice investor or an experienced collector, this is the program that gives you a realistic weekly perspective on the state of the economy, reliable information about using precious metals such as gold and silver and platinum to safeguard your wealth, and remarkable details about specific precious metal coins and bullion. Ken Russo is a senior vice president at Midas Gold Group. His peers characterize him as a straight shooter who will work harder for you than anyone else. Hey, Ken, it's really a pleasure to join you again this week.
Always nice to be with you, Dave.
Our topic is the downfall of the dollar and your financial future. And this is a program that really falls under the heading of a warning. But before we jump into this, here's a look ahead to the second part of today's program. We're going to look at a new digital dollar development that the federal government has just unveiled. So be sure to listen for that in about 15 minutes. But first, to start with, we're talking about the downfall of the dollar and your financial future because of a new article with the headline, China and Brazil ditch dollar. Strike deal to settle trade in yuan and real. Ken, why should this concern me? It's just Brazil and China working out a trade deal.
Well, Dave, I think the title of today's show says it all, the downfall of our dollar and how that affects each and every one's financial future that's listening to us. So it's very relevant. And just a little bit of history, Dave, for most people that they may not be aware of. China overtook the U.S. in 2009 to become Brazil's largest trading partner. That level of commerce between China and Brazil, Dave, which is, part of the BRIC nation, and we're hearing that possibly other countries are going to want to join that. And we actually did shows recently, you and I, about how these BRIC nations also hold a lot of U.S. debt that they probably are going to coordinate a big dumping of to try and crash our financial system too someday. But this just kind of goes back to how all of this is going to affect the value of our dollar, Dave. I mean, that's what we're concerned about here with our show is how do we protect our purchasing power and how do we protect ourselves from a financial system that more than likely is going to ultimately collapse. And those are the reasons why you have gold, right, Dave? But The trade deal here that we're talking about is China's latest salvo, so to speak, against the U.S. dollar that has so far been enjoying the status, of course, as we know, of the world's main reserve currency over the last 75 years. But that trend of the U.S. having the world reserve currency, as we've spoken about many times, is fading. It's definitely going in the wrong direction. China is allegedly the top rival, Dave, to the U.S. economic power at this point and dominance of the world trade stage. And Brazil enjoys the biggest economy in Latin America. So stuff like this in these two countries, it will directly affect our dollar and what's going on in the financial system. These countries are doing more and more business in what you and I called last week local currency. And that means the yuan, it means the real, and it means less business in the dollar. And that's the trend that we are seeing, Dave. The dollar, this country is headed in the wrong direction in every single possible way. And we're talking about in our show, how do we protect our nest egg so while all this unfolds, we don't lose it all.
A reminder here that you are listening to the Gold Standard with Ken Russo from Midas Gold Group. And our topic today is the downfall of the dollar and your financial future. So, Ken, is this just maybe an isolated blip on the dollar's international dominance?
I don't think so, Dave. I mean, this has been going for a while. We talked briefly a little bit last week that about 85% of all foreign exchange transactions back in the 70s were done in the dollar. And then it hit a low of the 40 or so percent in the 70s, and then it bounced back up till the euro was introduced, and now it's about 57, 58% of all the transactions out there that are being done with foreign exchange or in the dollar. So the trend is definitely going in the wrong direction. And this takes a while. This isn't anything that just occurs overnight, but the same article, Dave, goes on to state the so-called Dr. Doom, his name is Nouriel Roubini, who predicted the 2008 global financial crisis. He actually said last month, and we take everyone's opinion, right, Dave, with a grain of
With a
salt.
grain of
But
salt,
he
yeah.
said that the dollar's status as the world's main reserve currency is in jeopardy. And I'd agree with that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that it's headed in the wrong direction for sure, and doesn't take a physicist to realize that our money keeps buying less and less and less the more they print, print, print. So it's pretty basic. And his words are standing true as Russia and China have agreed to ditch the U.S. currency as an intermediary. Both countries, Dave, have, as we've spoken about, they've reached a deal to settle bilateral trades in their own local currency, more business outside of the dollar. And it's worth mentioning that China also has similar currency deals, literally with Russia, Pakistan, several other nations. So they are actively working to expand their influence by trying to replace the dollar, Dave, with their own currency as the recognized international currency of exchange. This is a big benefit. Obviously, if you're the world reserve currency, you could borrow at much, much lower rates and you have many financial advantages. We also learned, Dave, that this week that China and Saudi Arabia have also entered into a trade agreement that shuts out the United States. Literally, it's a LNG deal for liquefied natural gas. And all of this is going to have a very strong effect on the price of oil. And we're talking about the trend of how these countries, Dave, are starting to shut out the dollar as both the center of international trade and the preferred currency on the world scene. And that's a direct effect, Dave. That's a direct threat to every single person who's listening to us today. It's a threat to every single American. And it's the reason why it's so important to diversify some of your assets, because when the system crashes or when our dollar continues to erode in value, which is inevitable, okay? You know, a lot of people say, well, the system isn't going to crash because they're going to just print a lot more money to keep kicking the can down the road. Okay, well, that's not the way to run a responsible financial system. And it's definitely going to erode our purchasing power. So as all of these countries continue to do business in their local currency, and as all of these countries continue to see our debt as toxic and our money as toxic, our dollar as being a poisonous currency and investment, we need to take note of that. And we need to diversify. And we need to take some money out of the banking system and out of the markets, and we need to convert it to the only form of real money that's ever been in history. Money that doesn't depend on the promise of any government, and that's physical gold. So people really need to kind of understand what is going on. This is not going to turn around. It takes a while sometimes, or it just happens all at once, and then we're caught by surprise. People need to diversify and pull some money out of the bank, pull some money out of some cash or paper assets, pull some money out of IRAs or old 401ks or stocks, and give themselves an opportunity to survive this upcoming financial situation, which for our dollar and our financial system and our country as a whole, Dave, is not good.
Ken, we are a program that talks about the value of gold and silver. So, how would these two precious metals that you're encouraging us to take a look at and to get into, how would these two guard the value of our cash and investments?
Well, that's what they do by definition, Dave. Gold and silver have been money, as we've talked about many times, for thousands of years. It's the only form of real money. It's not printed out of thin air. It will always have value. It does not depend on the promise or the government keeping any promise. And in this particular type of dangerous, risky environment where we've printed tens of trillions of dollars, and we're not anywhere near done, Dave. We're going to print tens of trillions more over the next few years, maybe hundreds of trillions. It's a situation where it could spiral out of control even more so than what we've already done. And that's just reckless. It's a reckless financial system that's addicted to debt. And gold and silver, you can't print it out of thin air. It takes a long time. It's a precious metal. It always has value. I mean, kings throughout time have owned gold, slaves own debt. And I don't really know any other way to put it. And right now, every single person should be thinking about protecting their nest egg, developing their own gold vault, being a king, not a slave when it comes to your money. And I would just say that it is available. It's not talked about by bankers or advisors because they can't make any money selling physical gold or silver because they can't generate fees on that type of hard asset. They could only generate fees on paper assets where they keep switching stuff back and forth, stocks to annuities, annuities to mutual funds to stocks, to CDs, to money markets. I mean, those are the reasons, folks, why they have so many paper products to generate fees. But if you're looking at simply wealth preservation, Dave, to help escape what's going on here in the financial system and to escape losing so much purchasing power through inflation and through the devaluation of our currency, it's mandatory and necessary that people diversify. And what's easier or more well proven or has a longer track record of having value always than physical gold and physical silver.
And that's great advice and great guidance. We're going to continue our topic, the downfall of the dollar and your financial future, just a little bit later in the program, and we'll highlight several tangible ways that you can convert your wealth into the security of gold and silver. But first, a reminder that you are listening to The Gold Standard with Ken Russo from Midas Gold Group. And coming up, we're going to take a look at a specific precious metal that you can use to safeguard your wealth. And that's coming up right after this.
At the start of 2022, you could invest in almost anything and make money. The stock market was still growing, real estate was high, and cryptocurrency was the rage. What a difference a year makes. 2023 is going to be a year of economic upheaval, according to many economists. Sebastian Gorka here. The Biden regime is pressing ahead with its leftist agenda, ignoring the growing signs of a recession. But many economists are warning of massive layoffs and huge stock market losses, which is why I recommend calling Midas Gold Group to safeguard your wealth with the stability of gold while you can. Gold holds its value when economies fail, guarding against the ravages of inflation and the ruin of a recession. Talk with veteran-owned Midas Gold Group. Go to MidasGoldGroup.com or better yet, call 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. It's gold you can hold. Call now, 855-322-GOLD.
And we're back with more of The Gold Standard, brought to you by Midas Gold Group with Ken Russo. I'm Dave Dino. And our topic today is the downfall of the dollar and your financial future. By the way, if you live in the Los Angeles or Phoenix area, we actually encourage you to visit our local office to meet with us in person. For the address and directions, just log on to our website, MidasGoldGroup.com, M-I-D-A-S, MidasGoldGroup.com. For those of you listening in other cities, call us directly at 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-GOLD. By the numbers 855-322-4653. Now, it's time for our precious metal spotlight of the week, and today, the gold Britannia. Ken, this happens to be a favorite of mine because I'm a fan of history, and this coin reflects a lot of history, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, Dave. And like you were mentioning, call or look us up on the internet. I mean, what are you waiting for, right? I mean, you're waiting for the whole thing to blow up, and then you don't have an opportunity to move your money. So now would be a great time to think about gold. And one of the products is the Britannia. And Britannia, Dave, is the embodiment of the national spirit of Great Britain. Britannia has been the embodiment of Great Britain for 2,000 years. It's ever since the Romans invaded the Isles and claimed them as a province of Britannia. Britannia, Dave, first appeared on the Roman coins of Emperor Hadrian around 119 A.D., believe it or not. She was then revived for the coinage of Charles II in 1672. Just a little history.
What brought about the minting, then, of this particular coin?
Well, there was a movement, Dave. Remember back in 1974, President Ford let the Americans own gold again, and it kind of just triggered a worldwide event of wanting to own gold and gold coins, and the governments and the government mints understanding that, hey, well, maybe we should just make some coins, and we can sell our coins to people, and we could actually make money. That's probably the reasoning behind it. But there was a gold bullion explosion, especially with the gold Britannia in the mid 80s. And for the Britannia, it was 1987. And it was Europe's first gold bullion investment coin. And it's 24 karat gold, and it's 0.9999, which is the definition, Dave. I had a question yesterday from a client, and she asked, well, how do I know that my coin is 24 karat gold? I says, well, because right on it, it says 0.9999, which is the definition of 24 karat gold.
Can you describe its design as you hold one there?
Yeah, the coin, Dave, features the goddess Britannia standing upright against the wind and turbulent seas. She holds a trident. Her head is protected by a helmet, and she stands ready with both a shield and an olive branch. It's a beautiful, beautiful coin. Much more beautiful than the recent can design of Bud Light, but we can talk about that another time. The last few years, we've seen many changes to the design, Dave, of the Britannia series. The most important design change was 2016, and that introduced the 5th official portrait of the Queen. No British monarch has ever received such an honor, and now with the coronation of Charles, it will be expected that the coins with the Queen's portrait will become more scarce, adding to their value. Could be, I don't buy the coins because of whose face is on the front. We own the coins, Dave, because it's a great way to diversify. And we own the coins because it's a great way to know that no matter what happens with the financial system or our dollar, you'll at least have it. And I think that these coins, as well as other gold coins, will double in value over the next 5 or 10 years at a minimum, because our dollar is going to lose so much value, and it's becoming less and less the world reserve currency like we're talking about. And the gold Britannia, Dave, would be a magnificent addition to any bullion portfolio that's interested in diversifying in physical gold.
And is the Britannia, the gold Britannia, is it eligible for a gold IRA?
It is, Dave. If you have an old 401k or an existing IRA, you could transfer those funds into a gold IRA, and you could own gold Britannias. Also, if you have some liquid funds like in a non-qualified account, bank account, or some cash, you could also just own these coins outright. There's many coins to choose from. They're all good in their own particular way. But Midas Gold Group, Dave, is more than happy to advise prospective buyers and owners of gold on whether this coin is right for them, right for their precious metals portfolio. Right now, every client's a little different, so make that call. Let's get talking. There's no reason in the world why people shouldn't be thinking about doing this exactly right now.
And I love the fact that I can actually go to your website online and I can look at this coin, both the front and the back, and I can get an even more detailed history of it and a better picture of it as well. Thank you, Ken. Coming up in a moment, we're going to continue our topic of the downfall of the dollar and your financial future with Ken Russo from Midas Gold Group right after this.
With so many cracks showing up in the banking system and over $31 trillion of U.S. debt, is the full faith and credit of the government warranted? Just print more, you say? Argentina, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe all did that, and we know what happened. Defaults happen, but gold has never defaulted. Veteran-owned Midas Gold Group will reinforce your portfolio. Call 855-322-GOLD. Midas Gold Group, your vault of confidence.
And we're back with more of The Gold Standard, brought to you by Midas Gold Group with Ken Russo. I'm Dave Dino, and our topic today is the downfall of the dollar and your financial future. As we have been saying, if you live in the Los Angeles or Phoenix area, you can actually come and visit our local office to meet with us in person. For the address and directions, just log on to our website, MidasGoldGroup.com. MIDAS, MidasGoldGroup.com. For those of you listening in other cities, call us directly at 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. By the numbers 855-322-4653. Now, let's return to our topic. Ken, so far today, We have talked about the threat to the dollar's place on the world scene as the dominant currency, the standard of exchange, and the threat being posed by both China and Russia. China passionately wants to be the dominant force in the world, both militarily and economically, and so far, they are successfully moving toward that goal. And Russia would like nothing more than to damage America's economy because of the sanctions we've initiated against them because of their invasion of the Ukraine. Now, here's that news that I spoke of at the beginning of today's program. This is the headline from the past week. Long-awaited Fed digital payment system to launch in July. Ken, why should we be concerned about this?
Well, it's the next tangible step, Dave, in switching our economy completely to a central bank digital currency system. You know, they're calling it Fed Now. And obviously they're going to say it's for our benefit and it's efficient and all that stuff. But it's a way to have control of our money. And it's a way to turn our money on and off. And we're going to have to watch this very, very closely, Dave, as this is another trend in where we're headed for sure. And it's already started.
Ken, in reading the news release about this, the government makes it seem like Fed Now is just a more convenient and cost-cutting way for the federal government to send us money, like tax refunds, or for us to make payments to the government, like tax bills. They're promoting it simply as a more efficient way for money to flow. What could be wrong with that?
Well, I think I would prefer privacy, Dave. And I think our clients would prefer financial privacy. You remember the story of the frog in the pot, right? If you put a frog in a pot of cold water on the stove and you heat the water slowly, the frog will not be aware of the danger until it's too late and end up being boiled. And that's how I see this initial step moving toward a national digital currency, Dave. It's a slow warming towards acceptance. The Fed Now program would be channeled through the Federal Reserve Bank, the same institution that would manage a total digital currency system. And we already know that the Biden regime has run a study on the feasibility of a national digital currency. We talked about that over a year ago when there was an executive order about the responsible employment of digital assets. This is not a surprise, but as you can see, folks, we're quickly moving in that direction. And this would provide a widely accepted first step in that direction. Dave, that means that every single financial transaction that you make would be recorded in a database. It will be available to government officials for whatever reason they come up with. That for that reason only, why on earth would you want to have all of your money wrapped up in a system that's going to be completely monitored where the government can shut your money on or off? Why? Makes no sense. So what you have to do now, because we're obviously headed in this direction very quickly, you have to get some money out of the bank or out of the markets or out of some cash now, get some money out of this monitored system, out of this monitored digital currency system so that you could have some privacy. It's none of their business about everything that we do with our money. None of their business. So I would say that you do have an option. It's quickly headed in this direction. You can still do something about it. And I would urge every single person out there who's listening to consider that. Give us a call and we can talk about your options.
I think that is a very good summation of what we have talked about today. Ken, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Dave.
That is going to bring us to the end of our time together today here on The Gold Standard with Ken Russo, brought to you by Midas Gold Group. A reminder, opinions given here are not intended to be specific to your investment strategy, but rather general information to give you a better understanding of investing in precious metals. For answers to your questions, call Midas Gold Group at 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-GOLD.
Nice to be with you as always, Dave. Talk to you soon.
I look forward to it. I'm Dave Dino, and I hope you'll come and join us again next week at this same time for another edition of The Gold Standard. Yes, MidasGoldGroup.com. The Midas Gold Group is proud to be America's #1 veteran-owned gold dealer, supporting veterans' causes with a portion of profits donated to the Wounded Warriors Project and to the Semper Fi Fund. So your investment in your future is also an investment in the future of those who have bravely served the cause of freedom. Again, the number to call to speak directly with Midas Gold Group is 855 888-322-GOLD. Hey, Ken, thank you again for your time today.
The Gold Standard was brought to you by the Midas Gold Group.